So today we're doing kind of a routine check on a modified bitumen roof. It's a few years old here. I think I'll have to double check the records, but I think they said it was about 5 years old. And so we're just kind of looking for some obvious issues. Now, first thing you always want to check is along your drip edge, because 9 times out of 10, this is where you're going to have your biggest issue with modified bitumen. So here you can see we've kind of got a little wrinkle going. So what you're going to want to check is to see if that wrinkle has any lift to it, which it does. It's definitely getting water back in between there. And so you'll notice we got another little wrinkle right there. So we're going to try again, and it does. So those are going to be areas where the water can get inside the system. Next we've got a pitch pan here. So first off, when you're doing a pitch pan, I mean, this all clearly needs replaced, but this foam here actually absorbs water and it traps water between it and the pipe. So you always have to cut this back. So what they should have done is gone up about 1.5 inches, cut that insulation right there, then sealed it 1 inch up the pipe. As you can see, there's some holes there, so that's just going to allow water in. Now right next to it we've got a seam, and there's already water inside that, and that's just barely holding together at this point. I'll zoom out a bit, that way you guys don't miss anything. And so I'm just kind of pointing out, hey, that's already starting to peel, that's open, that's open. You got 2 marks on the edge, you got all this is open. I mean, we have some hail damage, but also look at how that's bent. That looks like somebody leaned against it at one point. So all the bases of pretty much every one of our pipes is just held together by plastic cement and dreams. Next, you're going to want to look at your seams that run parallel to the slope. And so you're going to want to look at these little T-joints here. See if you can find a gap there. And then up here, another common area for failure. So you do have a little gap. Now usually you wouldn't use this kind of tool on a modified bitumen. I don't recommend using it unless you know what you're doing, because you can actually cause a lot of damages with this if you use it wrong. I use it because frankly I've been doing it for decades now, so I'm used to it. And so here we've got another gap. So if you follow, you'll see there's a little wrinkle there, and you'll actually see that wrinkle goes all the way up. And so because of that wrinkle, there's a gap there. There's also a gap there. In fact, you can already see there's been some dirt, some moisture penetrating in that area. Now you see we've still got this wrinkle here. Same thing. So now the wrinkle moves over here. Same thing. And now the wrinkle moves here. I'll explain the tape measure later. Same thing. That one actually had moisture come out of it when I did it. That's the only good one I've seen so far. So pretty much every wrinkle except one has a gap to allow water in. Now we've got this edge here, kind of a improvised flashing. We've got a gap right there for water to get in. It's sealed over with silicone that didn't even stick. And so this is just kind of a fun little review. You know, even if you are going to do a poor detail like this, those aren't watertight screws. Those will just leak. Got a nice masthead here where it looks like they wrapped up the pipe and then ran the flashing over it. At least that's the way it looks until you look closer and realize, oh, that's just the old flashing they cut off. So the last person who did it ran flashing up the sides, but this guy wouldn't. That's a nice T-patch there, guaranteed that's leaking. That's a nice wrinkle there, guaranteed that's leaking. There's another seam there. Oh yeah, check this out. Oh, never mind that my boots are spongy. That's definitely got water under it. That's got a little bit of moisture over it. Still though, about an 8-inch overlap, so have to admire that. Now, another common point of failure is these angle changes. I'll go over to the other side where it's a bit drier, just for the video, because I'm gonna have to clean those off one by one. But it's exceedingly common when you just run your modified bitumen up the wall like this to see this area open up over time. And you can actually see a couple from here, just like that. And you can see from the amount of dirt in there, that's had issues for years probably. Yeah, and that's just all too common. Either A, this flashing was already here and they didn't feel comfortable torching it all the way up, but even if they had, you commonly see failures right here over time. So what you really should do in these cases is run a separate flashing. So run it up the wall a little bit here, do something to nail it off or something into the wall, usually terminate it, and then just run a separate piece of flashing all the way down to the end, torch that flashing onto here. But you know, more than likely what happened is they can't remove this piece, and so they just worked with what they had. So we've got no slip sheet underneath this satellite dish, so over time that's just going to rub holes into the modified bitumen. And on this one we've got a wood stand for the air conditioner. That wood stand helps kind of spread the weight out. The problem is A, still no slip sheet, so it's still going to slowly sink into the modified bitumen, causing damage there, but it's wood. And so what's going to happen with that wood is it's going to trap moisture underneath it. First off, that wood's going to rot and eventually break away, but as it traps moisture in it and under it, it's going to trap that moisture against the modified bitumen. That's just going to further accelerate the condition, causing a leak. As for the two tape measures, now normally you wouldn't do like a test square on modified bitumen like you would shingles or other roof systems. Usually it's either got hail or it doesn't. In this case, we're doing 10 foot by 10 foot just to show an example. We are training somebody else today, and so we're showing them, hey, here's how you can tell 10 foot by 10 foot. Well, if you look closely, you'll notice the distance between modified bitumen rolls. That's exactly 10 feet there. So usually modified bitumen roll is about 3 feet. So that's what you see there. That's exactly 3 feet. But then that's a little past, or a little less than 3 feet there. So what probably happened is either A, they pushed it out a little bit further than it's supposed to be, so it looks like they bought themselves an extra quarter, half inch. Yeah, I'd say about an extra half inch. Really no reason to, considering either way at the end you're going to end up with a half sheet, but sometimes they just don't lay it straight, and that's what happens. And so yeah, now we've got a 10 foot by 10 foot, and as you can pretty much see walking along the roof, there's no evidence of hail damaging the modified bitumen. It's all nice and clean. We do have a little bit on these caps here, and so typically these are aluminum. These are really fragile, and so if you get a 1/4 inch hail, you're going to see these kind of indents. Now we've had a little bit thicker than that, and so based off of what I'm seeing on these three, I'm going to say we probably had a 1 inch hail, but 1 inch hail just isn't enough to normally damage a good modified bitumen. And so yeah, that's a general inspection on modified bitumen. There are other areas to observe, but that's the main thing we're going to focus on today. The only other thing I would note is always chalk the top of your coping metal Chalk it for any hail damage that it might have. Make sure to measure it out completely. That doesn't mean just measure the top. You're going to want to measure every section of it.